Welcome back to Forever and Always. So I'm now joined by an amazing gentleman who's been single for 18 months, and we're just going to chat to him and hear more about the singleness journey from the male perspective. We just spoke to Zanele, who gave us a little bit more information about how the celibacy process is going for her. Monde, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. So Monde, you've been single for 18 months.
Yes.
Take me through this journey.
It's been a rather complicated journey because in church when you're not married, you're single. So it's safe to say I've been single all my life because I haven't necessarily been married. Yeah. But yeah, I guess I've had the fair share of both being single by virtue of not being married and being single by choice.
I like that you split it in two.
Yeah, it's something I realized over time that in church we tend to just say single and married, but there's people who are single but not necessarily available because they're in a relationship with someone, so they're not open.
I'm with you.
Yeah, so
seeing somebody else.
Yeah, so having experienced both that, I think is what makes the new journey a bit more palatable for me. Yeah.
So now you're single, zero single.
Single and single.
Okay. Okay. All right. So how's that journey been for you?
It's a rather interesting journey because you get to know people different. Because when you're in a relationship, for example, people interact with you differently. So when you're single, the same people who used to invite you for a braai or whatever are not necessarily giving you those calls, right?
Really? Why?
Because you're the odd one out.
Oh, okay. You're not a pair.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Well, you're not necessarily. You have to come with a +1 and you have to explain yourself. So that's different. And the fact that you're having different conversations now, because everyone wants to know why you're single. Are you single and looking?
Yeah.
So you can't. I think in the life we live now, it's hard for people to comprehend a man just being single and not necessarily pursuing anyone. At a particular moment.
It's interesting. It's interesting you say that. Take me through the do's and the don'ts of your single phase right now. So what are you doing? Are you courting people? Are you meeting people? Or are you just like?
Okay, I am open to going out for lunch, to get to know people, because I think at the foundation of it all is about getting to know one another. But I think for me, one rule that I'm consistent with is being myself consistently, so that the circumstances don't change me. The fact that I meet a pretty lady who wants a guy who likes cooking should not necessarily mean I should present myself as one who doesn't. You know what I mean?
Cooking.
Yeah. So it's a space that allows for me being myself in a space where you're either gonna like me for being me and not have to like me for the person I'm not.
I'm with you.
Yeah, so the pursuit of that. But yeah, going out, meeting people, having different conversations, some rather more shocking than you would expect. So because you have a different conversation with regards to intimacy, with regards to what's allowed to happen. Are you allowed to hold hands? Are you allowed to kiss someone? Yeah, so things like that come up more often now, and you're more aware of it because you're not necessarily with one person. Yeah, so you're open to dating.
Okay. Let's talk about intimacy as far as that part is concerned. I'd like to believe that you're also celibate, right? So when you're courting people and you're meeting with them, what are the do's and don'ts? What are you doing? Are you holding hands? Are you hugging? How far do you go?
I think for me, just a basic rule is to meet in more public areas, because I feel like you don't wanna create an environment that's conducive for what you say you don't want to do. You get what I mean? So I feel like hugging you can do. I don't think there's anything wrong with holding hands. I think my greatest struggle is what are you thinking about when that happens? Because your thought process is what will lead to what you act. Because I for one believe that whatever the mind perceives, the body will pursue. So I can hold your hand with a clear thought that it's just me holding your hand. This is not supposed to lead to any, yeah, you get what I mean? So when it's like that, it helps. And the fact that I keep myself in check all the time about what I'm thinking. I think, okay, I do think she's pretty, but let's keep it at pretty. For now, let's try and see what's in her mind.
So you don't get too excited?
Yeah. Yeah, because I think there's a downfall of many potentially good relationships. The fact that now my excitement will breed expectations, and then when you do something that's not in line with what I expected, then obviously I'm going to feel disappointed in you. And the next time when I talk to a friend of mine who thinks you're pretty, then I have to tell him that, nah, don't.
Oh, I like that. One thing that I've found has been it's really difficult for people to understand that men can actually be celibate, and I think some men find it very difficult to go through that phase. How have you found strength, or how have you been doing it? What are the checkpoints and the things that you have to put in place for you in order to be disciplined in that area of your life?
It's being true to self, because I think. If you know that you find a certain kind of woman sexy, right? Don't, okay, for lack of a better way of putting it, don't churchianize it so much that you're telling yourself you don't find her yeah, you get what I mean? Yeah, because it's gonna put you in a position where you're gonna believe your own delusion. And you're going to put yourself in compromising positions thinking, okay, I've prayed about it. I won't have feelings towards her anymore. So we can share a shower together. You get what I mean? Yeah, so for me, I keep my mind in check to say, okay, I do not want to pursue this. And the best way for me not to pursue this is if we meet in public spaces, if we have conversations that do not get me to think of you in that way. And that I find has been helpful in more ways than one. That when my mind is right, my body I have more control over my body.
Oh, okay.
Because I believe you're not gonna do away with the sexual desire.
Completely.
Yeah. So, but if your mind is right, you're gonna be able to control it, which is why I am for self-control as a fruit of the Spirit. That the fact that I have self-control does not remove the temptation. It just means I have to be cognizant all the time of the fact that even if this is permissible, it might not be good for me, so I'd rather not do it. Yeah.
It's interesting you mentioned that, because I think we're really trying to get away the stigma from people that are not Christians, or just people in general, to understand that Christians are human as well. Like you can still be celibate and go through real temptation, but you can still overcome it. But now here's an interesting thing someone asked me as I was preparing for this topic, that generally men are sexual beings. You guys have interesting mornings, going through just your life. You walk around at work and there's miniskirts everywhere, there's thighs, there's cleavage, there's just everything is exposed in this day and age that we live in. How do you move past that?
I think it's something to manage rather than move past. Because I've seen situations where guys have been so focused in detaching themselves from it that even after they'd found someone they love, it's hard now for them to embrace her. Because they've detached themselves so much. So we walking around seeing pretty women, they walking around seeing trees, right? With the hope that after the pastor says, and I now declare you husband and wife, all of a sudden, you'll automatically, So I think the journey of being single relies very strongly on self-control. The fact that we have sexualized people by virtue of what we see and what we think. So when the mind is transformed, it will enable me to walk into a room full of beautiful women and just see beautiful women and not necessarily sexualize every woman that I see. And that journey requires you to keep yourself in check every day, every minute of every day, because you're going to see that one, when you think, okay, I've got the self-control going, you're going to see that one lady that's going to throw you off the rails, right? And you have to be able to call yourself back in order. And if that doesn't work, you need to have someone you're accountable with. Someone you can tell that, today I saw this lady and I felt this way. And they're able to not judge you, but to journey with you through this transformation of the mind. Because I feel like we shouldn't think it's something of an impartation, that you're going to do this one magical prayer and all of a sudden Yeah,
find anybody attractive.
yes, you get what I mean? Because you still want to find women attractive.
Yes.
But it's just that by virtue of finding them attractive does not mean this should lead to any sexual interaction of any sort. Yeah.
I get that. Tell me about the searching phase.
The searching is tricky because church has really beautiful women.
Yeah.
I think for most of my friends say when they're ready to get married, they'll come to church, right? Yeah. So if you're in the church, then you're in the midst of all of this beauty. Yeah. So I think it's interesting because now you're in the midst of the beauty. Generally, then the beauty doesn't stand out. So character is what stands out. So now in the pursuit, I'm more in pursuit of character. So I'm more invested in having conversation with people about themselves, not what they're wearing, not what they look like on a Sunday, because if I'm expecting them to look pretty. I mean, it's one day in a week, so they had 6 days to prepare for the Sunday, right? So the expectation is they look really good on Sunday. But it gets tricky now because not everyone is as honest about who they are within the church, right?
Yes, I was about to say that within the church.
Yeah, within the church, because yeah, sure, you're a prayer warrior, that's fine, but you're still bitter though.
Yes.
And,
who are you?
and yeah, outside of the call that you have, or outside of what you do in church, who are you? And that's, I think the greater struggle in the pursuit is there, trying to peel away the layers of who the person is, so that you get to the core, so that when you decide to say, okay, I do, I want to be certain of what is it that I'm saying I do too, because till death do us part is a very long time. So I cannot afford to say I do to something I'm uncertain about. But let's peel this off with honesty. I'll be as honest as I can about me, with the hopes that it'll open up the floor for you to be honest as you can about yourself. And that makes the journey far more interesting in the pursuit.
Do you think that there's an illusion with single people in the church that all you need to do to make a relationship work, or to be found, or to find a wife, is to really just be soaked in the word and just do away with reality?
Yeah, I think it's I think previously from the church it came from a position of saying, if we keep them thinking this way, it will keep them pure. Yes. Right? But now, not looking at the fact that it hinders the after I do phase. The fact that you've been relating with the same person in a totally different manner. And now the following day, it's me and this person in a house together. I don't know whether I should hug her, whether I should wave at her. You get what I mean? Yeah, is it wrong, is it right? So I feel like it has been one-sided for too long. And now we're trying to break the walls, which is hard because it's coming against much opposition. But I think you need to teach people more to be themselves. Because my greatest challenge is the teachings of how to act. So every time I meet you, you're on an act. So I don't really get to know who you are. Yeah, you get what I mean? Yeah, and it makes it hard for me to even say, okay, let's have a picnic, because I don't want to be the awkward guy sitting with the lady who's praying at the park for 3 hours. You get what I mean? So I want to know that your spirituality doesn't detach you from the reality of life. Because in us being us, we need to minister to people by how we live. So they need to see that being Christian does not detach you from life. You're still alive. You can still go for movies. You can still go for a picnic. So that will help in bringing those who are outside, reeling them in. Because now it tends to become more of an exclusive club that's too exclusive that, for one, has kept some of my friends away from church. Because they think, nah, if this is what I'll have to do, no. You get what I mean? So it becomes more problematic. But I think it's tricky for the church. I understand the position the church is in, but I think we need to be proactive in breaking those walls to say, okay, can Christ rule in the lives of people and not church rules?
Sure. I really like you say that. And I think for me, the whole purpose of the show particularly is to really show people that Christians are normal human beings with everyday challenges that the next person goes through, you know. And I think going through that singleness journey for you could be relatively similar to somebody who's not saved yet, but you have a better governance of that. And I think it's also important for the women to also realize that there's a bit of reality in it, you know, all the time. You're not going to wake up next to someone and then be praying the entire day. You know, there's life that still needs to go on. There is character traits, there's conversations, there's fun, you know, and there's all of that. So yeah, thank you so much for that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think it's the tricky part about it is we need to understand that everyone comes from somewhere. And you don't want to find yourself in a position where the only thing you know about someone is from now going forward, because where they come from makes them who they are. So I would love to be in a position where when I say I love you, you're confident in the fact that I love where you come from, I love where we are, and I love the prospects of where we're going. And I think in singlehood, that's what we need to cultivate, because commitment is not going to be cultivated by a ring on your finger. True. Because that's a symbol of my commitment. I need to be already committed to something. You get what I mean? So I think in singlehood, I for one am committed to loving, and I'm saying, okay, I'm not in a relationship with you now, but I love everyone, so that by the time I meet the one that's right, I'm already in the journey of loving someone, in the journey of being committed with everyone. And I think in being single, we can open ourselves up to that, and not hope that one day the door to love will be opened by this one individual, and by you saying I do, you already
and
be.
then the love will spring up.
Yes, you get it. Yes. So let's walk in love. Love everyone. Love wholeheartedly. Commit to the love that you're gonna do, so that when you meet this special one, your choice in saying I do, you mean it, and the journey therefore is a journey that's without illusion. It's a journey that sees that, okay, when I married her, she was well beat, right? But she's gonna wake up in the morning. It might not look, I don't want to be with someone who has to wake up at 2 in the morning to put makeup on so that I'm comfortable with the look she has. You get me? So my singlehood should be a journey that enables us to be ourselves, true selves.
Yeah, I like that. And still be your true selves in Christ.
Yeah, let's unity in Christ is what will keep us together. And the love of Christ in me that I portray to you is what will enable me to accept you with your flaws. Yes. Not to say, because I feel that people, the phase of being single is not a phase to perfect myself. True. It's a phase to get to know myself so that I can introduce you to me. So that Christ can perfect me individually, you individually, and then collectively, He will perfect our union. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you very much. This has been such a fruitful conversation. Viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. As you've heard it, it's both exciting and challenging at the same time. Please don't forget to engage with us on our social media platforms, and we'll see you next time.